Good evening. Coming to you with another video here in the midst of the government shutdown on Department of Homeland Security and the Save America Act that the Dems are fighting tooth and nail, and a number of other things. I'd like to focus tonight on immigration and ICE issues. In order to do any examination of this, you've got to go back to pre-Joe Biden and pre-Donald Trump and recognize, and my older friends will remember, perhaps, if they choose to. Younger people might not remember or know that we heard from a litany of presidents and presidential administrations about the concept of illegal entry to the United States. Not to talk about approved and normalized immigration, but the illegal alien issue. From Bill Clinton to George W. to Hillary Clinton to Obama, we were told that illegal immigration was a serious issue and needed to be sternly addressed. They promised us all that. They came out time and time again talking about how they were going to improve border protection and refuse illegal entry and get this thing under control. It was all words. They weren't doing anything. The guy that tried to make it look like he was doing something, Obama, went out and earned himself the name deporter in chief. Now, the way he did that was he didn't start deporting anybody that hadn't previously been deported as a class of people. He screwed around with the language and how the numbers were reported. What had customarily been termed within the Border Patrol ranks as a turnback or a turnaround or something short of a deportation. If Jose is swimming across the Rio Grande and there stands a Border Patrol on the banks, and he looks at Jose in the water and says, "Get back over where you belong," and Jose turns around and swims back to the Mexican side, that's called a turnaround or a turnback. Well, Obama changed the reporting process, and he says, no, you put that guy in the deportation column. You start registering that guy as a deportee, so it makes me look good. So with that sleight of hand, Obama was able to make it look like he was deporting a lot of people. He wasn't, but that doesn't slow him down any. But in any case, prior to Joe Biden, we heard from Chuck Schumer and Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and Bill Clinton and all the left guard about how serious illegal immigration was and how it needed to be sternly addressed. There's film of it all. I saw it live. I'm old enough that I saw it live. People today can only see the film and they can choose to call it fake or not, but I know it's real because I lived it. In any case, ICE was in the background as an established authority to handle deportations of people that gained entry without being stopped at the border. And if people made asylum claims and other claims that might create them as an exception, um, then they got processed through the immigration courts. They got their due process, so to speak. And in the end, if they were deemed deportable, they were issued a final notice of removal. And then ICE would go with that authority in hand and find them and send them home. I mean, that's the system that Congress established long ago, before all the presidents I've mentioned that were rattling about illegal immigration and how stern they were going to be and all like that. Um, so some ICE deportations were happening throughout um, until along comes Donald Trump. And Donald Trump correctly identified prior to his first election to president. Uh, he correctly identified the same problem that had been pointed out by all the others, all the Democrat guard. But he looked at it and said, why don't we do something about it? Because these guys aren't. And in truth, they were not. So Donald Trump comes along in his first campaign for the presidency, and he has the foresight and the wisdom to go down to visit the border and talk to Border Patrol and talk to the administration of Border Patrol. And he looks at them all and says, what do you guys need? What do you need to help control this border? Because I'm looking at what Congress has called fences that aren't fences and walls that aren't walls. And what do you people need? And he gets a report back from Border Patrol and others, and they say, we could use a wall. We don't need a wall from A to B encompassing the entire southern border. There is geography and topography that makes mountainous entry and through certain areas virtually impossible, or certainly impractical. But we need stretches of wall, and we needed to have cameras and sensors and this and that. And so he says, well, I'll get you guys a wall if I'm elected. Now I got to set about and get elected. So Donald Trump comes down the golden escalator prior to his first term and announces that he's running for president. We all know how that went. The Dems fought him tooth and nail. Certainly some of the Republicans fought it too, because Donald Trump came along and said, I'm not part of the club. I'm not gonna do things like all these other guys have been doing for years and years, because it hasn't been working. It's been a lot of words, no action. And I'm not going to be the president that, like any president that's gone before. Well, the good old boys club can't have that, so they fire up the resistance. And they trash him as best they can, but you know what? He gets elected. People want what he's selling. And that forever leaves a bad taste in the Democrat mouth. It's pure and simple. They hate the man, they hate the man, they hate the man. And they've got to rabble up the rally and get the general public out there to hate the man also. Well, they manage over the course of 4 years to run him down, dirty him up every turn they get. And I've had Democrat friends look at me and say There's not one thing Donald Trump did in his first term that I agree with or approve of. Not one thing. And all that has done is demonstrate to me that people I previously thought were rational, intelligent beings are now consumed by hatred. And so consumed by hatred that they lost their reason and their rationale. That saddens me. Doesn't make me mad, doesn't make me angry. It saddens me because it forever casts them in a different light in my eyes. And I don't like that. But so Trump gets elected and he starts putting up a wall. He has to fight tooth and nail with Congress and everybody to get that, but he gets it. And he doesn't dictate to Border Patrol where they're going to build the wall. He counsels with them about where do they want the wall and what kind of wall. And so they developed, I think it was 8 different prototypes of wall that is to be reviewed by Congress and by everyone to decide on which prototype we're going to run with. And they do that, and a style of wall gets selected, and Trump starts building it. And for 4 years, keep in mind, the Democrats continue to demonize, run him down, and attack him at every turn. And at that point, they put up Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden was never a good candidate. It was his third run for the presidency. He had failed miserably twice before and was forced to leave the races and the campaigns and the primaries because he was found out to be, at best, on his good day, he was mediocre. But anything but Trump gets us Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden comes along and says, anything Trump did is wrong, and I'm going to reverse it all. Day one, he stops and says, there's not going to be one more foot of wall put up. And he turns around and basically opens up the border. And that was an interesting process because I understood it as it was happening. And that was that Border Patrol and Customs and Immigration has a certain number of beds that they go out and contract for, and they are able to house detainees. And meanwhile, south of the border, down Mexico way, and in Latin America, the open border people literally have people down there, American people, sent down there for the purpose of encouraging, overwhelm the system. They've only got so many beds. So you go up there, put together caravans, we'll help you, and we want you to overwhelm the system. And when you get to the border, you don't tell them, I'm seeking a better life, I'm coming here, because that doesn't qualify you for entry. What you tell them is, I'm seeking asylum because I'm afraid of being persecuted in my homeland, wherever it is. So we get caravans put together by these folks, and they proceed to flood the border. And Joe Biden is now president, And he turns around and says, well, the detention facilities are packed to the gills. They have flooded the border on me. And so while he's telling out of one side of his mouth, he's telling the American public the border is closed, we're not encouraging this, we've got this under control. What he's coming up with is overcrowded detention centers. Because the process says that you're supposed to, if you show up at the border and we are going to let you in under any circumstances, say you've been taught asylum me want asylum. So that's what detention facilities are for, so that you can be detained until such time as you can be processed by immigration courts to determine whether or not you qualify to come in under any program. And Biden found himself with overpacked facilities. So his answer to that was that his first answer was, well, we're going to start shipping them out by bus and by plane, and we're going to send them to American cities. And we're going to drop them off because we got to clear out these facilities. If the press gets a hold of this, and they don't want to, remember, they're backing the Democrats all the way. But if the press gets a hold of this, and what am I going to say about these overcrowded kids in cages? Remember the cages built by Obama, and pictures taken and tried to blame them on Trump, but they were using 2014 or 2000, I don't know what year it was, but it was certainly Obama pictures of kids in, quote, cages, air quotes, that truly did not exist. There were no cages. There were fenced dividers between adults and juveniles and a lot of things, but there weren't cages. These weren't cells. In any case, so Biden starts shipping plane loads of people out of these detention facilities, dumping them in New York, Chicago, you name it, in the interior of the country. And they're in such a hurry to do that what they start doing is, we got to get these people processed faster. And we can't put them into the immigration court system. There's too many, and we've got too many detainees. So we dump them into the interior of the country, and we give them a notice to appear at the immigration court in 2 years, 3 years sometimes. It's not like we're going to let you in and you're going to go to Chicago because that's where you told us you want to go, but you got to be back here in 30 days at immigration court. They were putting them out there 2 and 3 years. And 90% of those people did not show up for their due date. They were in. And they were in and had been here for several months, if not a couple of 3 years, and they weren't going to show up at immigration court because they knew they didn't qualify and they were going to get potentially sent back. So when they don't show up, or when they do show up and don't qualify, they get issued an order of removal. They've had their due process now. Well, meanwhile, these caravans, remember those? We're talking about thousands of people coming up by caravan. And Biden, in order to process them and get them out of the detention centers and off his hands, so to speak, he turns around and tells the Border Patrol people, the people with guns and badges, he tells them, keep your gun in your holster, here's a clipboard. And what you're going to do is take their name and their age and their birth date and some basic information, and you're going to put them not into a detention facility. You're going to give them a notice to appear. And then instead of calling them a detainee, we're going to call them on parole. We're going to create a parole system where we can dump all these people into the interior of the country. And states and mayors are up in arms about, give us money. You can't send all these people to us. You can't drop a busload of people in Chicago with nowhere to go and nowhere to house them. So we've got to house them now, and you need to send us money. So he does. And untold millions of dollars go to the cities where they're dropping these people off. It's all a big scam. And meanwhile, Biden's telling, and Kamala, or whatever her name is telling the whole world, oh, the border's not open. We've got this under control. And Mayorkas, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, he's carrying forth the stand-up comedy routine. And I got to tell you, I watch Fox News. I watch a lot of Fox News. And during those caravan days, Fox News went out and developed a drone pilot that could put a drone up in the air and give you broad view shots of these caravans and these people sitting in the shade of a bridge because they're online to come in and talk to a Border Patrol agent with their clipboard in their hand and give their name and say they're here for asylum and get shipped off to Chicago or wherever. But one thing the Fox News people were saying is there aren't any other news stations down here covering this. I'm a lonely guy, that reporter was. And so I'll count the press in as willing accomplices to the Biden administration about the whole border fiasco. They eventually start covering it, but by that time, Biden has fooled the world into thinking that this parole program is slicker than snot. And it's nothing about it written in policy and procedure. It was just dreamed up by somebody and probably signed by an auto pen, we now know. But he's developed a program that gets all these people fed into the interior of the country. And a lot of tax dollars go to it. Got to remember, the government doesn't have any money. The only money they have is tax dollars. So it's tax dollars that go into this Biden program. Well, like Trump brought us Biden, Biden brought Trump back. This fiasco got found out and could no longer be defended. And the public rose up and said, we don't care what you say about Trump. We've seen your guy. We don't want this. So under the promise of setting right the checkerboard that Biden had flipped over, Trump gets reelected. With the promise that, all these people Biden let in on parole, I'm going to send them all home because they don't qualify. They never qualified. He knew it. I know it. And you, the public, got fooled by it. So I'm going to send them all home. Well, the Democrats, now they're really up in arms. You can't do that. And on and on. What about these people? They've been here, they've been feathering their nests, they've been building a family, they've been doing this and doing that, all on the parole system of Biden. And so Trump says, all right, well, I'm going to send the worst ones home first. The worst are first. And because Biden's let in 11,887 or 8 murderers from other countries, convicted felons, drug dealers, human traffickers, sex criminals, you name it. They have all come in as part of those caravans and along with and under the cover of otherwise good people seeking a better life. But if Biden let in 11 million, there may be, we don't know whether 2 million of them are terrible or 2 million of them are wonderful. We don't know the percentages. What we know is that because we took their names and their date of birth and their place of birth and yada yada, we're able to go back and verify now that these people never should have been let in. And no one would agree, I hope, that the sex predators and the drug traffickers and the human traffickers and the murderers and thieves and you name it, I don't think anybody, well, I don't know, I guess. Democrats may want them to stay because there's more evidence of that than anything else. But they don't want those people sent home. So, because of Trump hatred, they turn around and say, we've got to fight this tooth and nail. And Trump says, well, I promised the voters that elected me, I'm going to send them all back. I'm going to send them all back. Now, I'll target the worst of the first for the first, but eventually they're all going to go. That's what I ran on. That's what I promised. And I won. To quote Obama, elections have consequences. Chuck Schumer and Nancy and others. So the American people want this, and Trump sets about to do it. It takes him a week to get the border under control, and which Biden said he couldn't do because he needed an act of Congress to further control the border. And as Trump so pointedly says, you didn't need new legislation. You needed a new president. And he got the border under control, I think, without exception and beyond disagreement. Now, Trump has said they're all going to go home eventually. The Democrats start fighting that. And boy, do they fight it. Anything to trip up Trump. Because again, we've got to hate Trump. So here we sit. Trump got elected promising he'd send them home. Democrats have to further demonize Trump by running down and demonizing ICE. Now, you've got a Minnesota governor and a mayor in Minneapolis that turn around and say, in order to fight Trump, we've got to fight ICE. We don't want ICE in our city deporting people. Not the worst, not the best. We don't want anybody deported. So we're going to rally people to go out and break the law. We don't tell them they're breaking the law because technically what we tell them is go out and protest, go out and make your voices be heard. And I've said previously, and I'll repeat again, going out and making your voices heard is one thing. Going out and interrupting and interfering in legitimate authorized ICE operations when they're out there to make an arrest, to send someone home under a final order of removal, then you're breaking the law. And you can say you're not. You can proclaim that you are a legal observer or a legal monitor. I've heard both phrases thrown around. The fact of the matter is, just because you say it doesn't make it so. What you are is breaking the law. Got a couple of people killed. And I've said previously what I think about that and the culpability that goes with the governor, the mayor, and anyone else that rallied the troops, so to speak, because they got those people killed. But the Dems don't care about that. They'll go up in arms. It gives them something else to scream about. Now they can call ICE murderers. They aren't murderers, but that's what they'll be called. And they get the gullible and the naive out there, and sometimes the stupid, and they get them to believe that. So we got to protest ICE. Well, the administration reacts. They bring in Tom Homan, who Obama has given a medal to back in his deportation days. And Tom Homan sits these people down and says, look, in order for me to take people out of here and not have this surge of ICE in your communities, because we've got to have one team out there to make the arrest, we've got to have another team out there to watch their back, because you've gotten a bunch of idiots out there blowing whistles and trying to prevent the arrest. So we'll keep right on. And if your people come out there and assault our officers, they're going to get arrested. If they attack our officers and our officers have to defend themselves, so be it. Now that's where the bear went in the woods. But if you start working with us and give us a heads up when people are getting out of jail, and we can pick them up in the jails rather than on the street or out of their kitchen, everybody's safer and everybody's better off. And if you'll agree to do that, I'll pull many of these ICE agents out of here. We won't need people to watch their back anymore. And that's what gets struck as a bargain behind the scenes. And so things quiet down a little bit in Minneapolis and other places, but everybody's still whipped up and protesting ICE. So the Dems now pivot and they turn to, we've got to defund ICE. We've got to defund the Department of Homeland Security until such time as they agree that we're not going to have ICE anymore. That's what we'll do. And here we sit with TSA lines and Coast Guard and FEMA and other people required to work without pay because the Dems are trying to still fight ICE. Now, they had to make it a demon in order to fight a demon. But make it a demon they have. So this is all their game. And Trump ain't playing. And here we sit. So thank you very much. I'm over my time, I guess, a little bit. But that's how we got here. And here we sit. And when I hear Donald Trump say, don't make any deals with those Democrats over this ICE situation, I couldn't applaud him more, because it is a game all started and driven by the Democrats and the left in our country. Thank you and good night. I welcome comments and remarks. And any of my left friends any friends I have left from the left, if you're seeing these videos, I welcome your input if you dare. Thank you.